I am simply thrilled to be joined by the greatest dramatic Verdian mezzo soprano of our times. She hails from Salem, Oregon, although she was raised in Nevada. It's in the chorus of the Nevada Opera that she is first taken notice by Ted Puffer, who helps her to really understand her voice and develop her technique. She goes on to finish her studies at the University of Nevada and the Manhattan School of Music, which leads to her joining the Meryla program at San Francisco Opera, which of course then leads to her making her debut as Azucena in Il Trovatore, the opera we will see her in tonight. And from there, she pretty much, her career takes off internationally. And she distinguishes herself particularly in the roles of Verdi. So she does the princesses of Amneris and Eboli, as well as Ulrica and Lady Macbeth, of course, other composers as well, Samson and Delilah, Santuzza, Adolgiza, La Favorita, the list goes on. I'm so excited because this performance tonight marks her debut production at the Met 32 years ago. So the fact that she's here to talk to us, I'm just bursting with pride. Ms. Dolora Zajick, thank you so much for being with us.
It's a great pleasure to be here.
You're too kind. Now, let's go back 32 years ago. Your debut occurs.
Am I that old?
Yeah, oh, very young, very young. You started so young. But 32 years ago, this particular performance is a live from the Met telecast. You're on the stage with Pavarotti, who's at the height of his powers at the time, Ava Martone, Cheryl Milnes. What was going on in your mind during this debut? Take us back.
Well, it's interesting because when one is working, one doesn't worry about things. When one is concentrating on what you need to do, you don't get too scared because you're just constantly, okay, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this, and you have your plan in mind how you're going to function. And I think that's really more of what I was thinking rather than, oh dear, I'm singing at the Met. That came afterwards. After it was over, then I went, did I really do that? Did I really make my debut at the Met? I mean, it was after the fact because I kept my eye on the path at that time.
Got you. Well, I have to tell you, I remember this time very well because there was a lot of talk about you, a lot of hype. You were in all the opera news, and everyone was talking about this young mezzo who's going to be the successor to Fiorenza Cosotto, who was doing all the dramatic Verdi parts at the Met at the time, but she was, nearing retirement. And so I remember when I heard you do those first trills in your Stride la Vampa, those dramatic trills, and I thought, this woman knows what she's doing. And so I have to tell you, or I have to ask you, I should say, just going back to that time once again, the education that you got from Ted Puffer, was it he who helped you understand this unusual voice you had, this very dramatic voice, and you employed a lot of chest. So tell us about that.
Well, it's a little complicated. I basically was vocally raised in isolation because Reno, Nevada was kind of like an island, lived in its own solipsistic place. And and Ted Puffer was one of those one-man band geniuses that he could do many different things. He was a polymath. And I know people brag about their teachers and all that, but he really did give me a grounding. And I remember I worked in the music library, and they ran out of money, so they didn't have any recordings past 1962. So the only mezzos that I heard that they had recordings of was Mingini Cataneo, Fedora Barbieri, Giulietta Siminato, Ebestignani, and Irina Arkhipova. And there were some contraltos too, but that's basically, and Cosottos, early Cosotto. And so that's all I heard. So I thought that's what you were supposed to sound like. And of course, I never used chest voice. They all say that, but they did. I mean, you just listen to them and they did. And so I didn't grow up with this idea that using chest voice was going to hurt you. Wow. And because I was listening to the old time singers that they used it profusely. And of course, many people told me I was going to ruin my voice. Some people gave me 5 years. Some people were generous and gave me like 6 or 7 years.
That's what, the critics were saying that.
Or 2 years, I was going to have, my voice is going to be frazzled. Well, I ended up ruining my voice for 32 years.
Got you. Can I ask this question? Now,
Yeah.
the spring of 2020 was due to be your final performance at the Met, but of course the pandemic has sort of interrupted that, and so I think that we need to have a proper farewell. What do you think? Do you have
Well,
any?
I mean, that would be nice, but let's be practical. I mean, we don't know what the pandemic's going to do in the year, and I'm going to be 70.
Ah, yeah, but you're
That's
still sounding so fantastic.
well, that I'd like the grace to leave the audience with a a semblance of how I sang in the past. I find this year was the year that I started making that turning point, and it was time. It's time. It's time not to sing. And besides, I have so many things I want to do. I'm composing. I'm writing a book. I'm running my program, and it's if I'm singing, I don't have time for that.
Well, I'm still hope there will be at least a fitting farewell tribute to your time because you've sung that role more than any other mezzo in the history of the Met. So I do hope that they will recognize that. But while you're on the subject, tell us a little bit about the Institute for Young Dramatic Voices. Tell us about that.
Well, we founded this organization because there were more people on the planet than ever before, but there were fewer dramatic voices. And so we founded this organization to find, help, and nurture these voices that can sing Verdi and Wagner, and some of the other dramatic rep. Um, what's We're a little bit different than other programs. There are two things that make us a little different. One is that most programs focus on a particular level of performance, a certain age level of development, and then a wide variety of voice types. And we're the opposite. So we have a much narrower range of voice types, but we have a wide variety of developmental levels. So we have like 6 programs to cover the different everything from high school level to young professionals who've already made a debut in a major house.
Say you were confronted with the Dolora Zajick, who's 21 today in 2020. What advice would you give a young singer with a voice like yours? Because I understand in the beginning, people didn't often know what your voice was so unusual. I understand that's what I've read, that people didn't quite know what to do with you. What would your advice be of a young singer who's trying to find their way today?
My advice would be to audition your teachers. Don't just go to a school and expect to get a good teacher because it's a famous school, because you might get the bottom of the barrel there. And big voices are often misunderstood. They sound rough and ungainly in the beginning. That's why we call our program the Ugly Duckling Club, because people don't understand that they're swans, but they have to go through their growth process. And then you need to audition your teachers. You need to go on an audition tour and find out who works for you. And if you don't trust your own ears, you need to bring somebody with you that whose ears you do trust to find a good teacher. Now we have a lot of good teachers, wonderful teachers through our program. So some of them go with those teachers, some of them go with other teachers. And our philosophy is, if it isn't broken, we don't fix it.
Well, Ms. Dolora Zajic, you have made my day. You've dropped some pearls of wisdom. Thank you so much for joining us. This was quite a treat.
Well, it was very nice to meet you.